Legend has it, the song To Live Is To Die is Metallica's tribute to Cliff Burton, and I was told my whole life that he wrote the lyrics to the spoken word section on that song. It turns out that's not true. We'll talk about who actually wrote those lyrics, and we'll philosophically analyze every other song on the album, and justice for all. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. I've made several videos recently criticizing Metallica, but now it's time to heap praises on them because we're talking about one of my Mount Rushmore albums, the album that turned me into a metalhead, one of the greatest of all time, and Justice for All. In my opinion, this album is one of the most meaningful lyrically of any Metallica album. Obviously, Kill 'Em All was just a bunch of kids having fun playing metal, and then they started to mature over the years, but they drew inspiration from outside sources like Creeping Death, like The Thing That Should Not Be. You know, you write songs about what you can, but there was a cohesive message on And Justice for All. And we start with Blackened, which in my opinion is one of the greatest album openers of all time. That intro is forever seared into my brain. And just like Fight Fire with Fire before it, this is yet again a great example of 80s thrash bands talking about nuclear war. And you might ask, why was that such a common theme amongst all the 80s thrash bands? Well, you just have to think about it historically. This is all going on during the Reagan years. This is all going on during the height of the Cold War. So there was a lot of hysteria in society about us going to the brink of nuclear warfare. Probably just as much hysteria as the 50s and those propaganda shots where you have the kids hiding under their desks. This is what was bothering the kids at the time. This is what they're writing metal about. Fire is the outcome of hypocrisy, darkest potency, in the exit of humanity. Color our world blackened. Some people have opined that this song could also possibly be about environmental destruction, but I disagree because of the lyric, "In minutes disappears." That's a bomb going off. But I do have one question about the lyrics on this one. Why did he mention deadly nicotine? That's the only lyric on here that doesn't make sense to me. Deadly nicotine kills what might have been. Was that just a cool line that he needed to put in there? I'm not sure. Tell me what you think in the comments. Now let's do the title track, And Justice for All. And Justice for All is quite clearly about people with money being above the law, manipulating the legal system to their own benefit. And it has long been a thought of mine that it really doesn't matter what system of governance we live under. This will always be the case. People with money will always be more powerful. It doesn't matter if we live in capitalism, which this album was clearly written under with a very North American bent to it. But also, if you live under communism, people with money are still going to influence people in power. That's the nature of money. That's the nature of corruption. And all other systems under the sun, influential people are going to wield their influence. The amount of freedom that you have is directionally proportional to the amount of money that you have. But it's not just money that's being critiqued here. It's the very nature of the justice system in the United States of America. We have what's called an adversarial justice system. Now, I know that there's a lot of lawyers on metal Twitter. Shout out Sanitarium. Shout out Heavy Metal Esquire. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But my layman's understanding of the adversarial justice system is the prosecutor is supposed to do his or her best job to prosecute the case, regardless of whether or not they believe the party is guilty, and vice versa. The defense lawyer is supposed to do his or her best job to defend their client, regardless of whether they are guilty or not. It's not about truth. It's not about finding out what actually happened. It's not about who's guilty or not. The defense is supposed to do the best job they can for the defendant, and the prosecutor is supposed to do the best job they can prosecuting. They're not supposed to go, oh, actually, this guy's innocent and I'm not going to prosecute. And the defense, even if they know that their defendant is guilty, they're supposed to get them the least punishment that they possibly can. Seeking no truth, winning is all. find it so grim, so true, so real. Now, the first two songs were pretty on the nose, pretty obvious to analyze, but now let's talk about Eye of the Beholder, which in my opinion has a lot of deep meaning and was way ahead of its time in 1988. You see, I think this song is about abjection. And again, this was in 1988, so this was prior to the second wave of black metal that happened in the early 90s. This is post-Venom, post-Celtic Frost, prior to Mayhem and Darkthrone. Now listen to these lyrics. Do you fear what I fear? Living properly. Truth to you is lies to me. Do you choose what I choose? More alternatives. Energy is derived from both the plus and the negatives. Do you need what I need? Boundaries overthrown. Look inside, to each his own. And littered all throughout this album, there's lots of themes of we're not really as free as we were taught as children, as we were propagandized here in the United States. But I found this line interesting. This is more of a personal philosophy than it is a government critique. This is almost to me James saying, well, true freedom comes from not wanting anything. Check this line out. Do you want what I want? Desire not a thing. I hunger after independence, lengthen freedom's ring. That desire not a thing. That's where the true freedom comes from. That's pretty interesting. I think James might have inadvertently portrayed some personal philosophy there, embedded it inside this critique of the system. Now, the next song on the album is One, and we don't really have to do much analysis here. This one's been analyzed to no end. We all know the story. One was written and inspired by the film Johnny Got His Gun. It's about a guy that was blown up in war, has no arms, no legs, no sight, and he's basically trapped inside the confines of his own mind. This is the song that changed my life forever. I was watching MTV one day as a kid, back when they still played metal music videos late at night, and that first time I heard that machine gun riff, that ba-da-da-da-da, it was over. I knew right then and there I will never be the same again, and it's been nonstop pursuit of metal since then. But like I said, we don't really have to analyze this. It's pretty apparent what it's about. So instead of analyzing it, let me ask you some questions. If you were in that situation, if you had no use of your body, no sight, no smell, everything is all inside your mind, would you want to continue living? Or would you maybe create a universe in your mind and rule over it like Neo in the Matrix? I don't really know that I would want to live personally, but then again, I don't know what it's like to experience life without the physical desires that drive so much of my motivation. You know, a lot of what I do is based on me wanting to enjoy good food. A lot of what I do is me wanting to have sex, wanting to experience certain things. And if that was all taken away, I no longer have a sex drive. I can't taste food. So all of my physical desires are gone. What kind of person would I be? You know, it's easy for me to say, no, I don't want to live like that. But maybe it's a radically different experience with a radically different mindset. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Next up is Shortest Straw, and in my opinion, this song is about being falsely accused of wrongdoing and having your life or reputation ruined. The song talks about being blacklisted, and also check these lyrics out. Shortest straw, challenge liberty, down by law, live in infamy. Rub you raw, witch hunt riding through, shortest straw, the shortest straw has been pulled for you. You know, I've criticized James over the years a few times for some of his lyrics, but he's also really capable of some William Blake-esque prose, and that's why I criticize him, because I know he's able to write genius stuff like this, and I would love for everything to be held to that standard. But then again, how many songs has Metallica released? Maybe that's impossible. Next up is Harvester of Sorrow. And my whole life, until I did this analysis, I always thought that Harvester of Sorrow had the worst lyrics, that was being propped up on the album by just how awesome these riffs are. It's always been one of my favorite songs, but you know, the lyrics always seemed kind of juvenile to me until I analyzed them for this episode and I realized it's about parents killing their children. It seems like the parents in this song are drug-addled maniacs that resent their children for ruining their lives. Just check these lyrics out. I give, you take, this life that I forsake, been cheated of my youth, you turn this lie to truth. Now, at first listen, you may say, that doesn't mean it's parents killing their children. But then if you look at the last lines, and my whole life, I never knew what that last line was. That very last word, I never understood it. Now I know, and it's like, holy shit, it was right there. All have said their prayers, invade their nightmares. To see unto my eyes, you'll see where murder lies. And here's that word I never understood until I read the lyrics. Infanticide. Infanticide. There's really not much debate about what that means. I was shocked to find out that this song that I just thought had cool riffs that I've enjoyed my whole life was actually maybe one of the heaviest songs that they've ever written subject matter wise. I was quite surprised to learn that about this song, and that just goes to show we should go back and listen to these old albums again. There's always something you miss. Next up is the frayed ends of Sanity, and I've got a maybe fond's not the right word, but I've got a great memory of this song, and it was one of my first lessons that I'm not like other people. I was a teenager, I was dating this girl, and I was singing along to the opening of this song. I had created like a mix CD or something, and this song came on, that that part, and I was singing along to it, and the girl I was dating, down here in the Bible Belt, she goes, "Don't sing that." And I was like, "Why? What's wrong with that?" So just don't. She couldn't explain to me why, but looking back, I know why she didn't want me to sing it, because it sounds evil, and it made her uncomfortable. There's no lyrics, it's just a chant, but it sounds evil, and where I'm from, that's devil worshiping. I thought I'd share that memory with you because this song doesn't really require much analysis. Insanity has been a constant theme throughout Metallica's career. You need to look no further than songs like Sanitarium. You're always going to find Metallica songs about insanity. You're going to find Metallica songs about regret. Just look at how many times Metallica has written a song called Unforgiven. These are common themes, and this one's pretty obvious, but the song rules, and I've got a fond memory to go along with it. Old habits reappear, fighting the fear of fear, growing conspiracy, everyone's after me, frayed ends of sanity, hear them calling me. Now here's what I talked about in the intro. To live is to die. I was told my whole life that this is Metallica's tribute to Cliff Burton, and the lyrics in this song were actually written by him, which turns out to not be true. Now, maybe this is the tribute to Cliff Burton, and maybe those lyrics were a favorite poem of Cliff's, but Cliff didn't write those lyrics. When a man lies, he murders some part of the world. These are the pale deaths which men miscall their lives. All this I cannot bear to witness any longer. Cannot the kingdom of salvation take me home? Those words are a poem written by Paul Gerhardt. Now, by all accounts, Cliff was a very straightforward, no-nonsense kind of guy, so I could easily see this being one of his favorite poems, and maybe that's why Metallica chose it, but these lyrics were not written by Cliff Burton. That is an urban legend that turns out is not true. Myth busted. Now, with all that being said, I do still think that To Live Is To Die is one of Metallica's finest instrumental performances. I could easily see this one being a tribute to Cliff, like the legend says, for the simple fact that the classical sound of it, that was Cliff's major contribution to Metallica. Prior to Cliff joining the band, they were more of a speed metal, new wave of British heavy metal sort of band. And once Cliff joined, that's when the classical influences came in, and they are all over the clean sections of this one. Now let's talk about the closer, Dyer's Eve. I said that Eye of the Beholder was ahead of its time, and this one is also ahead of its time. This is the first hard rock song that I ever heard that had that message, oh, I'm so fucked up because of what my parents did to me. This was long before Stained and all those emo hard rock bands of the 90s. Metallica did it first. The difference is Metallica didn't harp on that shit and stay in that woe is me bullshit for their entire career. We'll see what 72 Seasons brings. It seems like it's a personal album for James, but this is a one-off that closes the album, and this is one of the hardest Metallica songs to play. I know several people that have done Metallica covers on YouTube, and they always ask for requests, and they always play all of their requests unless you request Dyer's Eve. Yet to see somebody take that challenge up. Now, I'm not a depressed person. I don't suffer from depression. I don't resent my parents. But I can relate to this one. Coming from a fundamentalist Christian family, I can relate to the message of being a sheltered child and then being bewildered when I see the real world. Shocked at the world I see. Innocent victim, please rescue me. James came from a Christian Scientist family, which is a different form of fundamentalist Christian than what I grew up in, but I can still relate. There was a lot withheld from me. I was a sheltered child. And much like James, when I got out there, I was like, oh shit, I'm fixing to party. I didn't know that the world was like this. My parents led me to believe that most people lived by Christian values. And when I got out into the real world, I found out that that is absolutely not true. Most people don't live by those values, including the Christians themselves. But I was making decisions based on the idea that the people around me would act accordingly, which of course is not true. I wasn't raised to be prepared for the realities of the world that I actually live in. And I think that this is what a young James in 1988 was also struggling with. The horrors of the world that we live in that his parents did not prepare him for. And when you think about it like that, suddenly it makes sense why this is the album closer. You've got an album all about critiquing the system, critiquing the government and society, saying that it's not just. And then you wonder, like, what's this emo I'm so mad at my parents song doing at the end? And you realize, oh, right. Because he wasn't prepared for the world that he's critiquing. He wasn't prepared for reality. And at the end of the day, the first society you ever witness as a human being is your family. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the philosophy of Metallica and Justice for All. Please let me know what I got right and, more importantly, what I missed. Let me know what you think about these songs. Let me know which lyrics speak to you. And if you want more philosophical analysis of Metallica, I've covered the previous two albums. If you're on YouTube, click right here for the philosophy of Master of Puppets. Subscribe for more. I might do one more of these before the release of 72 Seasons. If not, I'll get to the Black Album eventually. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.